8 days ago, in a small, dimly lit bar on a Thursday night, Elio sat quietly at the counter with a bottle of beer in hand. The chatter around him was soft, the kind of noise that fills the air without becoming noise at all. But then the energy shifted. A tall, muscular man, around 6'2" and easily 250 pounds, swaggered in with his friends. His name was Brant. Loud, confident, and used to getting attention, he spotted a pretty brunette chatting with Elio and decided to make his entrance. He didn't say, "Excuse me." He just wedged himself between them, his broad back blocking Elio out completely. "Let me get you a real drink. Beautiful," Brant said with a smirk. The woman, Nara, looked uncomfortable, glancing over Brant's shoulder toward Elio. "Actually, we were just," she tried to say, but Brant cut her off with a wave of his hand. "Trust me, sweetheart, you need someone who can actually take care of you." He flagged down the bartender and ordered her a martini she hadn't asked for. Then, finally, he turned to Elio. "You can go now, buddy." Elio didn't move. He simply took another calm sip of his drink. That tiny act, that calmness, irritated Brant more than any insult could have. Brant shifted his weight and used his size to push Elio down the bar. The edge of the counter dug into Elio's ribs, but he didn't react. Brant expected him to flinch or back off, maybe even apologize. Instead, Elio stayed seated, his face neutral. Brant's smirk faltered. "What's the matter? You deaf or something?" he asked loudly. Elio replied in a calm tone. "Just finishing my drink." That only made Brant angrier. He reached out suddenly, swiping Elio's glasses right off his face. The sound of them clattering across the counter cut through the music. The bar turned quiet for a moment. Brant picked up the glasses and spun them on his finger. "You look 12, man. Go back to daycare," he said, grinning as his friends laughed. Elio stayed still. He'd been trained for 10 years in Taekwondo. He knew how dangerous ego could be. Real fighters don't fight in bars. That was rule number 1. He reached calmly for his glasses. Brant slid them farther away with a single finger. "Leave them," he taunted. Elio stood, walked around him, and retrieved them without a word. When Elio sat back down, Brant turned toward the entire bar. "Hey everyone, we got a creeper here," he shouted. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Nara tried to speak up, but Brant put a hand on her shoulder, possessive, controlling, and told her, "Relax, I've got this." His buddies roared with laughter from their table. "Card him again," someone yelled. "Looks like he's in middle school." Brant grinned wide. The bartender's eyes narrowed, but didn't intervene yet. Elio stayed still, calm but aware his reputation was burning in real time. Suddenly, Brant grabbed Elio's wrist and lifted it in the air like a trophy. "Look at this. My 12-year-old nephew's stronger," he shouted. Elio didn't resist. He just breathed slowly, eyes steady, body relaxed. Brant tightened his grip, pressing his thumb into a pressure point. "Show her you're a real man," he mocked, pushing Elio against the bar. The edge bit into his spine. The room grew tense. Nara's expression changed from discomfort to fear. Something in Brant's energy had shifted, from arrogance to aggression. Nara stood abruptly. "I'm leaving," she said, but Brant grabbed her wrist. "Come on, I'll walk you to your car," he said with fake concern. She tried to pull away. His grip tightened. "Let go," she demanded. "I'm just being a gentleman," he replied, smiling wide. Her panic showed in her voice when she said louder, "Let me go." The bar fell silent. Elio's muscles tightened, instinct pushing against discipline. When Brant yanked her harder, that was it. The line had been crossed. Elio moved, fast, controlled, almost invisible. One twist, one redirection, and Brant's grip on Nara broke instantly. "Walk away," Elio said quietly. Brant's face flushed red. He shoved Elio hard, sending him backward into the counter. Elio didn't fall. The bartender was already calling security. Brant charged like a bull, swinging wildly. Elio slipped to the left, the punch cutting air. Another swing, miss. Another miss. Each miss fed Brant's anger, and the crowd began recording. Brant's breathing turned heavy, his tank top dark with sweat. "Stop dancing and fight me," he roared. Elier didn't answer. A security guard appeared through the crowd, radio in hand. Brant instantly changed his tone, raising his hands. Hey, it's fine, he said quickly. This guy's been harassing that girl. But then Nara stepped forward, trembling but clear. That's not true, she said. He's the one who grabbed me. The bartender and several regulars backed her up. The guard's face hardened. Sir, you need to leave. Brant's jaw tightened, eyes burning with humiliation. That was the night the story began, but it was far from over. The next morning, Elier opened his small Taekwondo gym like he did every day at 5 a.m. The smell of sweat, polish, and discipline filled the air. By 6:30, his students were already warming up when the front door slammed open. Standing there, stone-faced and sober, was Brant. The same man from the bar, only quieter now. His jaw was locked, his eyes cold. You thought that was funny? He said. Elier didn't answer. His students looked on, confused. If you want a real fight, Brant continued, you'll get one. No cameras this time. Elier calmly told him to leave. But instead, Brant smiled. Actually, he said, I think I'll stay. That day, Brant signed up for a month-to-month membership. He filled out the form politely, even cracking a fake smile. Legally, Elier couldn't stop him. From that moment on, Brant became a shadow in the gym. Never training, never speaking, just watching. He'd sit in the back during every class, arms crossed, eyes fixed on Elier. Some students whispered that he made them uncomfortable. Parents picking up their kids hesitated at the door. One by one, people began dropping out. Elier's once busy classes shrank. Brant never broke a rule, and that was what made it worse. Weeks passed, and the gym's atmosphere turned heavy. Every session felt like walking on glass. Brant didn't need to say a word. His presence was enough to poison the air. Elier tried talking to him, asking what he wanted. Brant just smiled and said, Maybe I want to learn from the best. It was mockery wrapped in politeness. Outside the gym, Elier's girlfriend, Sarah, started noticing changes in him. Shorter temper, restless nights. Who is that man? She asked one evening. Elier hesitated before answering. Someone who's trying to break me. It didn't stop at the gym. Brant began appearing everywhere. At the grocery store, the cafe, even the restaurant where Elier and Sarah had dinner. He'd wave casually, pretending it was coincidence. One night, they saw him sitting just 2 tables away, whispering things to his date that made her giggle while staring directly at them. When they left, Brant followed them outside. Good to see you again, coach, he called out. Introduce me to your lady? Sarah clutched Elier's arm, eyes wide. That night, she asked him, Is this going to end? Elier didn't have an answer. The next day, the harassment moved online. Brant started liking Elier's old photos one by one, training clips, pictures with friends, posts from years ago. He left small comments like, nice form, or beautiful couple. They weren't threats, but they were messages. He was showing Elier that he was everywhere. Soon, Sarah began getting friend requests from accounts with no pictures. The messages were harmless on the surface. Hey, aren't you Elier's girlfriend? But she knew who was behind them. The sense of safety in their own home began to fade. Elier tried to keep teaching, pretending everything was normal, but the tension showed. He'd catch himself glancing toward the door every few minutes. His students noticed. Some parents pulled their kids out, saying they didn't feel comfortable. Income dropped. Bills piled up. At night, Sarah cried, saying she couldn't handle the constant fear anymore. Elier started documenting everything, dates, times, photos, messages. But it felt useless. He's not threatening me, Elier told a friend. He's just watching. And sometimes, that kind of fear runs deeper than violence. 3 weeks into Brant's campaign, graffiti appeared on Elier's gym window, crude drawings and insults. The security footage showed hooded figures, faces hidden. The police took a report but shrugged. Could be anyone, they said. The next morning, flyers popped up around town advertising a real fighting gym, mocking Elier's teaching style. The contact number went straight to Brant's voicemail. His plan was working. He didn't need to hit Elier to destroy him. He just had to isolate him, piece by piece. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She packed a bag and said she'd stay with her sister for a while. "I love you," she said through tears, "but I can't live like this." Elier watched her drive away and felt something inside him fracture. That night, he sat alone in his dark gym, the air heavy with silence. Every corner reminded him of what he'd lost, his students, his peace, his relationship. But somewhere in that stillness, a single thought rose. If he's going to play this game, I'll play smarter. The next morning, one of his remaining students, Vera, approached him after class. She worked in social media analysis and had been studying the fake accounts. "They all link back to the same source," she said, showing him her laptop. "Same IP, same activity pattern. It's him." Elias stared at the screen, realization dawning. He finally had something solid. "Can we trace it?" he asked. Vera nodded slowly. "We already did." That was the first spark, the moment Elier stopped being the hunted and began setting the trap. Elier knew he couldn't fight this with fists, not anymore. He began recording every single class session, pretending it was for instructional improvement. The cameras caught everything. Brant sitting in the back, arms crossed, his silent presence infecting the room, his friends making snide comments, the tension rippling through the students. Elier edited the footage carefully, uploading short clips to his gym's social media with captions like, "Discipline is about focus, even when distractions surround you." The posts gained traction. Parents began asking questions. People started to see what was really happening. Brant noticed the videos within days. His response was exactly what Elier expected: more appearances, more interruptions, louder remarks. He'd walk around during classes, cracking jokes to make the students laugh or lose focus. What he didn't realize was that every second of his behavior was being recorded. "You trying to make me famous, coach?" he sneered one evening. Elias simply looked at him and said, "You're doing that yourself." That line hit hard, and Brant's fake grin faltered for the first time. Vera continued digging, tracing connections that painted a clear picture of Brant's habits. He followed a routine like clockwork: gym in the morning, protein shake at the same cafe, lunch at the sports bar with his buddies. He posted his every move online, turning himself into a walking map. Elier didn't need to stalk him. Brant's ego did the work. Meanwhile, Vera discovered something else: messages from other women who'd had run-ins with Brant. One of them was Nara, the brunette from that night. She agreed to help, saying softly over the phone, "He's done this before, hasn't he?" A week later, Sarah called Elier in tears. Someone had slashed her car tires outside her sister's apartment. No cameras, no witnesses. "It's him," she whispered, voice shaking. "I know it's him." Elier clenched his jaw. "Stay inside," he told her. "I'll handle this." But deep down, he knew he couldn't prove anything yet. The next morning, he arrived at the gym to find the front lock glued shut and protein powder scattered across the mats. It wasn't vandalism, it was a message. Brant was still playing his game. Vera introduced Elier to other small business owners who dealt with similar harassment. A coffee shop manager, a bar owner, even a rival gym instructor. All had stories about Brant stirring trouble and walking away untouched. Together, they formed an informal network, sharing information and video evidence. One of them, a bar manager, said something that stuck with Elier. "He's careful. He never starts fights. He just ruins lives." Elier leaned back in his chair and murmured, "Then let's give him a fight he can't walk away from." Instead of avoiding Brant, Elier began showing up where Brant usually hung out. He'd sit quietly at the sports bar, order a sandwich, chat with the staff, acting completely unbothered. Brant and his crew couldn't resist approaching. "Hey, look who it is," one of them snickered. Elier didn't flinch. He simply kept eating. People around started noticing the one-sided provocation. Even the manager kept the security cameras trained on them. Eventually, Brant's friends began whispering nervously, glancing up at the blinking red light of the camera. For the first time, they looked scared. Within a week, 2 of Elier's former students returned, saying they'd seen his videos online. "We didn't realize what was happening," one said. Parents began reaching out again. The truth was spreading. Meanwhile, Vera discovered Brant's workplace, a high-end fitness club across town. Their social media proudly featured him as a lead trainer. Vera looked at Elier and said, "They have no idea who they hired." Elier hesitated. "You think we should contact them?" She nodded. "Not accuse, just show facts." Together, they compiled everything: the videos, screenshots, witness statements, timestamps, and the bar footage from months ago. It was a clean, factual dossier, no emotion, no exaggeration. They sent it to the club's management with a polite note. "We thought you should be aware of this behavior from one of your trainers." It didn't take long for the fallout. That evening, pounding shook Elier's front door. Brant stood outside, screaming, "You got me fired. You ruined my life," he roared. Elier filmed the entire outburst through the window, saying nothing. When the police arrived, Brant was already gone. But the damage to his reputation had finally begun to stick. His gym suspended him. His friends distanced themselves. His online persona started to crumble. Desperate, he created fake profiles again, harassing Sarah with disturbing messages. Late-night calls followed, food deliveries Elier hadn't ordered, childish, desperate acts of a man losing control. But Elier didn't react. He just kept documenting. He was no longer fighting back. He was letting Brant implode. The balance had shifted, and for the first time, Brant didn't realize he was the one being cornered. Word spread fast. Other instructors, gym owners, and martial arts schools reached out to Elier. Some offered their support, others sent messages like, "We've had people like him too." What had started as a personal battle was becoming a movement. Local businesses quietly passed a story around, warning one another. Meanwhile, Brant's employer confirmed his termination after multiple women came forward about his behavior. Elier didn't celebrate. He knew men like Brant rarely stopped. They just hid until another opportunity came. And he was right. A few days later, Brant showed up at Elier's gym again, this time in a pressed shirt, holding an envelope. He wasn't alone. An older man in a suit stood beside him. Brant smiled coldly. "You've gone too far, coach," he said, handing the envelope over. Inside was a cease and desist letter accusing Elier of defamation and harassment. The irony was almost laughable. Elier passed it to his lawyer, a student who'd trained with him for years. After reading it, she chuckled. "This is nothing but noise," she said, drafting a calm reply that listed every documented incident and reminded Brant of the criminal charges he was edging toward. After that, the harassment slowed. The fake accounts vanished. The calls stopped. Even Brant's friends quit showing up. Elier kept his cameras rolling and his documents updated, but deep down he knew it wasn't over. He'd seen that kind of rage before, the kind that burns quietly before exploding. Still, the gym began to heal. Students returned. New faces joined. Parents thanked Elier for teaching not just self-defense but restraint. Sarah moved back in, though more cautious now. Together, they installed a new security system and tried to reclaim normal life. Months passed. Elier started sleeping again. Then one night, Vera messaged him. "He's posting again." Brant had moved to another city, but similar stories were appearing: a new gym, new students, new women complaining about feeling uncomfortable. It was the same pattern all over again. Vera looked at Elier and said, "We can't stop him everywhere, but we can make sure no one else gets caught off guard." That night, they created a private online group, a network for trainers and gym owners to share information about predatory behavior. It was small, but powerful. 6 months after that first night at the bar, Elier ran into Nara again. She smiled nervously when she saw him. "I heard what you did," she said softly. "Thank you." She told him she'd started taking self-defense classes, Krav Maga, not Taekwondo. They both laughed. Then she added, "I've been talking to other women too, about men like him. We're not staying quiet anymore." Her words stayed with Elier long after she left. This wasn't just about Brant anymore. It was about everyone who'd ever been pushed into silence. Back at the gym, Elier and Vera started planning something new, a women's self-defense workshop open to the public. "If he's watching," Vera said, "he won't be able to resist." Elier hesitated. "That's dangerous." So was letting him run free, she replied. They decided to do it, but with a twist. Every participant would be an experienced martial artist pretending to be a beginner. Hidden cameras would cover every angle. Their allies, the bar manager, the cafe owner, even a coffee shop staff, would be stationed nearby, ready to record from outside. It wasn't revenge. It was proof. The night of the workshop arrived. The gem lights glowed warm and inviting. Women stretched on the mats, laughing casually, while Vera checked the camera feeds. Elier began his introduction. Tonight is about awareness and control. Right on cue, the door opened. Brant walked in, flanked by two new men. He wore a smug grin, pretending he belonged. He's here, Vera whispered through her earpiece. The women continued acting nervous, exactly as planned. Brant's confidence grew as he watched what he thought were easy targets. Mind if I help? He called out. Elias smiled politely. Just observe. Brant couldn't resist. He stepped forward, ignoring Elier's instructions, and reached for one of the women to demonstrate. In an instant, she flipped his wrist and sent him stumbling back, a clean judo move. Gasps filled the room. His friends rushed forward, but the other students moved into defensive stances, controlling space with perfect form. Brant's smirk vanished. He realized too late that this wasn't a class, it was a setup. Outside, Vera was already calling the police. Every angle was being streamed live to their private network. The trap had sprung, and Brant was the mouse. Brant's frustration exploded. He charged at Elier, swinging wildly, just like that night in the bar. Elier didn't strike. He simply moved, redirecting, avoiding, letting Brant's rage burn itself out. Sirens wailed outside. Brant's friends froze. Police are here, someone shouted. But Brant wasn't thinking anymore, just swinging. He grabbed Elier's shirt, cocking his arm for a punch, exactly as the first officer burst through the door. Hands up. The command echoed through the gym. Brant froze mid-swing. Cameras flashed. Witnesses stood everywhere. There was no denying it this time. The officers moved fast. Brant's hands were pulled behind his back as they read him his rights. His face turned red, humiliation, rage, disbelief. It's not what it looks like, he shouted, voice cracking. He set me up. But no one believed him. The women in the class stood quietly, phones still recording. Outside, his two friends were being questioned beside their car. Vera captured every second from the parking lot. For the first time, the man who had weaponized fear was powerless, caught not by violence, but by his own arrogance. The police gathered statements. The so-called students revealed their credentials, trained martial artists, self-defense instructors, even a few off-duty officers. They explained they'd volunteered for the workshop as part of a safety initiative. When the officers reviewed the footage, there was no question of guilt. Everything was clear: Brant's harassment, his physical aggression, his attempts to intimidate. Elias stood in silence as the officers thanked him for remaining calm. You handled this better than most, one said. Elias simply nodded, exhausted but relieved. The next morning, Vera uploaded a detailed, factual report, not to gossip pages or viral outlets, but to a private network of gym owners, instructors, and local business associations. It included video clips, screenshots, witness statements, and a timeline of Brant's pattern across multiple cities. The documentation spread like wildfire through professional circles. Within days, every reputable gym within 100 miles blacklisted him. A week later, his former employer released a statement confirming multiple complaints and a permanent ban. For once, the truth moved faster than the lies. Life slowly returned to balance. Sarah moved back home full-time. The gym buzzed again, laughter, focus, discipline. The students who'd stayed became his most loyal supporters. They trained harder, not just in combat, but in self-control. Parents who once pulled their kids returned, saying they trusted Elier more than ever. You taught us more than Taekwondo, one father said. You taught us what strength really means. Elier smiled softly. That was all the reward he needed. Months later, Elier heard that Brant had relocated again, this time under a different name, in a different city. But it didn't matter. The network Vera built had grown nationwide. Word would spread. Patterns would be caught. Predators like Brant wouldn't be able to hide anymore. The incident had sparked something much bigger, a quiet movement for accountability. And Elier had become its unexpected catalyst. 6 months after the arrest, Nara visited Elier's gym. She was different now, stronger, confident, no longer the scared woman from that night at the bar. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, smiling. "Not just for stepping in, but for everything you did after." Elia laughed gently. "You did your part too. You spoke up." She nodded. "Because you showed me how." They shook hands, two strangers bound by one chaotic night that had changed both their lives forever. Elier's teaching evolved. His classes became more than drills and forms. They were lessons in awareness, boundaries, and emotional control. A fight isn't always with fists, he'd tell his students. Sometimes it's with patience. Vera and Sarah both joined him in developing a new program for women, not just self-defense, but self-empowerment. The motto painted across the gym wall read, "Strength isn't in the strike, it's in the stillness." And every time Elier saw it, he remembered exactly why it mattered. One evening, after class ended, Elier sat alone in the quiet gym. The mats were clean, the lights soft. Through the glass door, the city glowed faintly. He thought of everything that had happened, the humiliation, the fear, the sleepless nights, and realized it had all led here. Peace wasn't something you win, it's something you protect. He smiled faintly, whispering to himself, "The best victory is when your enemy defeats himself." Then he turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked home, stronger, calmer, and finally free. Please like, comment, and subscribe.